G'day guys, you're back with Miracle Max. In a recent video I replaced a fuel pump on an Audi Q5 Quattro 8R 2011 model with that 2 litre TFSI petrol engine in it. If you're looking for the link, have a look up there somewhere, I believe. It did have a crack in the top of the pump and it was allowing fuel to come out like a fountain. I replaced that pump and I thought everything was honky-dory. But when the customer went to fill up the fuel, all of a sudden something strange happened. They had long crank times, but also fuel started to come out again. I thought, oh no, what have I done wrong? But let's check out what the problem is, and it's not my fault. Obviously not a sponsor, but this pump was put out by Fuel Miser. There's the pump number there, FPE 834. Now the pump itself, seems to work okay. Yes, I know it's got written on China somewhere, but look, don't worry about that. Everything's made in China, doesn't mean it's bad. That's not the issue. It appears that this fuel pump is used on various models, and of course there's sometimes connectors that aren't needed for that particular model, including this bloke right here. Now that there is the problem. Let's have a closer look at it. It's open to atmosphere over here, but if we zoom in right downstairs, you can see that it is actually blanked off on the inside, therefore stopping vapour and fuel, etc. from escaping out that port. Of course, filling up this well area, then dripping on the fuel tank and onto the ground, which is quite dangerous. I'm going to take this into the college to show the students what can happen. But as we can see here, there's the crack that caused the issue to start with. And that's why I've written on it there for identification purposes. But this is a return-less system, which means there's only one port or one connection that you need to clip a line onto. A return system will have an outlet and also a return line that goes back into the tank. So whether this is used for the return system on another model, I don't know. But in this case, the genuine original pump is blocked off underneath, as I showed you. But the aftermarket one, they weren't kind enough to do that for us. There's a drilling straight through. It's not blocked off underneath at all. It's not blocked off on the top, and they don't even give you a plug to block it. And of course, your customer goes away happy as Larry. Then 2 weeks later, when they fill up their fuel tank, fuel starts to come out of here. When it pressurises inside the tank, it just starts to dribble out there, as you can see in this video. This is the fuel pump that I replaced because it had a cracked housing in the accumulator area, which is about there somewhere. But now it's getting fuel out of this port here. Now there was no cover on it or anything like that. It's a return-less system, so there's only one pipe going onto it. The vehicle runs, it starts, etc. But after it sits for a while, fuel starts to spew out of here, and it really doesn't take much pressure. I thought it might have been a vacuum release for when there's too much pressure in the tank, but that's usually done by the cap. So if I put the cap back on, after it's been sitting for a while, fuel will start to come out of that little pipe, and even though, you know, there's no real pressure in the tank, fuel will eventually come out of there. It's just about to come out now. The customer has just filled up the tank, and it's worse now. She has had hard starting problems, long crank times as well, no fault codes shown. You can see that pipe's filling up with fuel now, and I had the lid off the tank for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and yet there's enough pressure in this now that is now building up. Alright, you can see the fuel starting to come out there. And yet the solution is so simple. One of the other TAC guys rang me up and said, hey, we're doing exactly the same thing on an Audi Q3, I think it was, or Q7, can't remember which, but he said in the box comes with a little blanking plug, which of course goes plonk on top of there. Now they do give you a dust cover that just keeps the dirt out, etc., which in actual fact I left on because I wasn't sure about it, but it doesn't stop fuel leaking out here. So I've ordered the correct part from HSY and it should be in the mail shortly, and then I can put it onto the vehicle. There is a land down here, very similar to this one. There's a locking land there that the blanking plug will clip into place, and it has an O-ring. That will stop any fuel coming out, fuel vapours, etc. And of course, more importantly, it will pressurize the fuel tank. Hopefully that should sort out any issues with long crank time. Would be nice if RYYZN actually put that in the box, similar to what the parts supplier at HSY did. That would solve all the issue. This didn't even have a note inside. Pretty unprofessional. I did ring up Repco where I bought this from. They assured me that they would pass on that information to the tech guys, and hopefully they can get that sorted. It's just a matter of putting a blanking plug on top. That will stop the issue. So here it is, the fuel pump blanking cap that I need to suit my Audi fuel pump, and that's the little bloke there. Nothing special, but just note that it's actually a VDO part, and we can see the part number there. You might want to take note of that. It's a A2C 52062707Z, I believe. Now, while I'm happy to pay whatever it was for this, unfortunately HSY said that they would send it via freight, and that freight cost me $20 odd, for instance. So I've got to lump that on top of the price of this little cap here. Now, you can get it on eBay via spare box, I believe, for about 23 bucks. This is going to cost a lot more simply because of the freight that's been added on top. But delivery was quick, I must admit. So all we need to do now is stick it onto the new fuel pump to stop that fuel from leaking out of that port. One interesting thing to note is that I had a look on the Repco site, and this plug is actually available on the Repco site. Why is it not included in the fuel pump box? I don't know. Doesn't make sense. As you can see, there's actually a land on the bottom of this port, and that is where our port cover, our blanking plug, gets clipped into. Simple fix, it's got an O-ring on it, and it's a matter of, hear that click? Once it's clipped into place, it's now sealed with that O-ring, so there should be no more leaking issues there. I need to address this connector, which got damaged because of all the fuel, etc. there, so we need to pull that off and have a look at it now. I tried to get the connector through Audi, and they said, yeah, might as well buy a wiring loom. There's a wiring loom that goes from the fuel pump up further. I didn't want to pay that. I just wanted the connector. So after much research, I was able to find just this here connector, which is spot on, exactly what I want. Now, I probably won't have to do all the crimp terminals, etc., but I do need this fella here and all those seals and locking tabs, etc. Now, this was provided, not a sponsor, of course, not a sponsor, SJ Car Parts. And guess where they're from? They're from Pommyland. So over in England, I believe that's where this is saying it's from, the United Kingdom, and this took a week and a half to get here. Look, I can't even get stuff from Victoria up to us in less time. Although it wasn't overly cheap, it's exactly what I need to repair the connector on the Audi Q5. Firstly, we need to remove this pink retainer, and that can be done by either pushing back through here, or there's a slot in the side here that you should be able to latch something onto, but I'll probably be able to get into it just with a screwdriver and flip it out like that. That needs to get pulled out entirely through that little window on the side. Like, come on fella. Almost there. There we go, that's pulled out. That's actually a locking tab that holds or helps hold the terminals in place. Next thing we need to do is make sure that we get those terminals in the correct holes or orientation. Probably take a photo on my phone or write it down so that I've got a record of that. In the kit you get all the terminals, connectors, locking tabs, etc., and the weather seals. Now, I'm not going to actually replace those because I'm hoping that these weather seals are still in good condition. All I want to do is replace this connector. As you can see, this is all perished and broken, and the locking tab, etc. So that will be my main goal. As you can see here, there's little tiny holes here and here and here and here. These release the tabs, the metal tabs on the connectors themselves that hold it into the plastic housing. So if I use my special tools, I'll show you those shortly, they should hopefully be able to get those tabs and wires out. This is the kit that I bought. Didn't cost me much. I think it was like 15-20 bucks for the whole lot. And I did some practice last night, and I've identified, I hope, the correct ones. Now put little white marks on there that should do the job. Now these widely spaced ones are the ones for the bigger terminals, I'm hoping. So that there should go into those two holes. Fingers crossed. That should release that wire, I'm hoping. And out it comes. nicely. There we go, look at that. That's the way we do it. So that wasn't very hard. You can see that these little tabs here and on the other side here are the ones that hold it in place. So I'm going to have to just bend those up a fraction, maybe with my nail or something along those lines, just to put some more tension on them so that they will hold in place when I push them back into the new connector. Making sure that the orientation is correct, and we pop him in like that. You should hear an audible click, of course. Like that. Beautiful. Okay, let's just try that little tiny one there. It's stinking hot here today, so it's a little bit warm and I'm sweating all over the camera. So push them down. That went in nicely, and that fella there should come out next. Now these little tabs are locking tabs, as I mentioned, and I forgot to pull them up, so I'm just using one of the other picks that come with the kit. I'm just going to lift that up just a fraction, in theory, just to get some clippage happening. So if it sits proud like that, as you can see, I might zoom in a bit more for you. Don't know how close you can get there, but you can see on this one here, it's now sticking up a little bit. It's a little bit proud compared to the bottom one. The bottom one's stuck down tight, so I'll try and just pull that bottom one up a bit as well. Just put that locking key under there. You can clearly see that they're both up now, and that should fit into place nicely on our new connector. When you push it in, you should hear an audible click, but these little fellas, you probably won't hear it as much, particularly with the noise around me at the moment. That clicked into place. I could hear it anyway. So yes, rinse and repeat with the rest. So it's a little bit harder to do in a car park, but I was a mobile mechanic for 8 years, so it's nothing new to me. We got that one out nicely. Let's just spread those little terminals there once again. When you're working mobile, the most important thing is to make sure that you have enough tools with you. You put a lot of thought in before you go out on a job, and make sure that you have everything that you need. So that one should go in there. Click. Hear that click. Nice. Alright, so we've got the majority of everything done now. We need to put that purple connector back into place. It only really goes in one way, and if you have a look here, this faces to the back, I believe. So that little cutaway there, I believe that should go in there. You'll feel it go in if it's correct. That's now located correctly into place, and of course the seal, it has to be external or internal to the seal, so you've got to force that in a fair bit, but that looks pretty good to me. Our little locking tab goes in next, and that should slide into here, I believe, like that. Okay, so now what happens is when we click this into place, it should, where's our flat bit? That way. That in fact should go in there like that. Push it down nice and tight, and then this little connector should clip into place. Audibly click once again. That should be nice and tight. I think we've got a winner here, guys. That looks pretty good to me. As you can see, I've managed to get rid of pretty much all the fuel out of that cavity there. I'm happy that I have my blanking plug on there, as well as my connector has been replaced. I can now put on my access panel together with the back seat. This is all done in a car park, keep in mind. It was a relief to have that blanking plug put back on top of the fuel pump where it belongs. I don't understand the reasoning behind leaving out that blanking plug during the installation of the fuel pump. But if the suppliers can save a few bucks, that's what they do. And I've also been able to replace that faulty connector, the one that was affected by the petrol. The vehicle is operating correctly as it should do. There's no fault codes and it's starting correctly. I hope this was a good pointer for you guys out there with a similar issue after installing a new fuel pump. If you got something from this video and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, feel free to comment down below. Don't forget about that notification bell. You don't want to miss any future videos. So guys, until next time, this is Miracle Max signing off. I will catch you later. you.